If you do not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you do understand will confuse you. In all of these 9 areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Anywhere on the planet, minute by minute, day by day, all of the time, all of the time, all of the time.
Welcome to the Neely Fuller's Counter-Racist Code Show with me, Mr. Bobby, and Gate will be in today doing his thing, and some very interesting and deep subjects that we are going to discuss today. So you're going to have to go into the stacks, as we used to say when I was in college, to get and do your research on this, and please do your research. Well, let's do this first. How about that? Wait a minute. Here we go. Back. Let me see here. Wait a minute. There we go. Now, you can help support and promote the show by hitting the like button and the share button. Now, to watch the show, you can go to YouTube at Produce Justice, Facebook and Instagram at Produce Justice Neely Fuller Jr., and you can also watch the show live at producejustice.com. By the way, a replay of the show is available immediately on all platforms. To get on the show, to share your thoughts, click on the link in the feed and you will be prompted on what to do next. Now, to contact us off air, send your questions or comments to contact@producejustice.com. This is also important. To order the books, you go to producejustice.com, and all the books that Mr. Fuller has written, publications, and I understand there's some upcoming information that will be forthcoming, so you may want to do that. That is that what we do here at the Neely Fuller Show, the Counter-Racist Code Show, and that's what we deal with. ProduceJustice.com, that's the area we go to, and let me get to Gate. Gate, I know you're still learning, but how are you this morning?
Good morning, Mr. Bobby, and thank you again for co-hosting this show with me, and thank you to everybody for listening in this morning. This is the Counter-Racist Code Show, Mr. Fuller's Counter-Racist Code Show, and we are here to keep Mr. Fuller's legacy alive. Mr. Fuller, of course, joined the ancestors in February 1st of this year, and the family and the Produce Justice Organization have charged us with this awesome responsibility to keep Mr. Fuller's legacy alive, and it's well worth maintaining. Mr. Fuller wrote these 3 books. He wrote the original Counter-Racist Code Show book back in 1984. He wrote a word guide in 2010, then came out in 2016 with the expanded edition, which you can get by going to producejustice.com. And you can also keep up with the show by going to producejustice.com. And this version of the show is still in its infancy, and we're still working out some bugs. Initially, the show was on Talktainment, then it went to Blog Talk Radio, and now we're doing it on social media. We're on the website. We're doing it digitally. And of course, with any change, you're going to experience some challenges, and that's what we've been doing for the past couple of weeks. But we've been soldiering on. Now we're going to talk about some things. We're going to hear Mr. Fuller's exact words, and we're going to add our own take on some things. And Mr. Fuller, he left these books, but he also left some instructions. He said, these books are not the law. Use what you can. And also, he said, we didn't run a dictatorship here. I'm paraphrasing him, but we all have our own right to speak our piece. matter of fact, he coined the term VGQ, which stands for Victims Guaranteed Qualification. In other words, you have the right to say what you feel if you're a victim. If you're a victim of the system of racism and white supremacy, then you also have a right to speak your piece. Now, we try to also run this, we try to be contextual. We look at some things that are happening around the world and in the country. And right now we're seeing certain areas of the country underwater. And that's tragic. That's tragic. Up in the state of Texas, we're seeing people drowning, 26. Can you imagine you've got less than a half hour to get out of the way of a 26-foot wall of water? And that's what we're seeing out in Texas. Unfortunately, things get politicized, and this is no exception. But sometimes things are politicized, not because for politicizing sake, but because sometimes the people who are charged with our our safety, our security, our well-being, inject politics and things, and they run things that are the opposite of justice. Many people are going to be second guessing what's happening out in Florida, and that some of these things were prevented, could have been prevented. But when you run against justice, when you run counter to justice, when you put personal benefit and greed and certain things ahead of justice, sometimes people get hurt. And we've seen this, what's happening in Congress the past few weeks with this legislation that's passed. And we've seen a cutting away of some of the safeguards, not of just society and democracy, but things that actually protect us and keep us safe. Is that the case of what's going on in Florida? I mean, Texas? That's yet to be seen. Mr. Fuller actually had some words to say about what was going on out, not in Florida, in Texas specifically, but he talked about, what do you do? What about these floods and natural disasters? What's the constructive approach? And we're going to do that in a second. What disasters?
Well, I'm thinking about the storm and what the code says about what you do when this happens. And you help yourself first, because you can't help anybody else without helping yourself first. That's compensatory laws of the universe. And a person who is healthy and has a lot of strength will help themselves first. And then they will help the weakest among those people who are in the storm, whomever those persons might be. Because at some point, the strongest person will become a weak person too.
But I'm going to give you the a summary of what Mr. Fuller was saying, is that even though you may find yourself in a situation like a flood, and you may see others around you that need help. He said the first thing you need to do is help yourself. Now, if you've been on an airplane and plane, when they're giving out those instructions and they're telling the mothers, if you got a child with you, put the mask over the child first. Make yourself, put the mask over yourself first to make sure that you're healthy and that you're able to help somebody. You can't help anybody if you can't help yourself. Now, what he also went on to say is that should the victims of white supremacy and racism help whites, even though they may be suspected racist, in a situation where they're in trouble. If they're caught up in a flood and you see them going downstream and you have the ability to help them, should you as a non-white person provide help and assistance to that person? And sometimes I know we get caught up in, that person could have been a terrible person, but sometimes you really don't know. but sometimes we assume that because somebody is a certain race, then they may have certain tendencies or proclivities. Well, Mr. Fuller said, and you can go back and listen to some of his past shows, and we can get this quote up again. We'll do it again. But he said towards the end of his statement that you help those who need help the most, even if it's that white person. His concept of justice was guaranteeing that no one is mistreated and guaranteeing that those that need help the most get the most constructive help. And he did not make any exceptions. Now, what happened also, Mr. Bobby, is that one of the callers called in and he challenged Mr. Fuller. I'm going to paraphrase the caller as well. He said, but aren't non-white people, black people specifically, aren't we always in a situation where we are the last, the least, and the lost? And how in the world can we help anybody when we constantly find ourselves under attack, being marginalized, being all the bad things that comes along with injustice? And so he put that in the area of a VGQ. And so I would go as far as to say, so I took what Mr. Fuller said and what the caller said. And Mr. Fuller, I look at it this way. There are going to be times when you are going to find yourself in a situation where you may have to help somebody that you may not agree with. It may be someone who has treated you harshly or unjustly. But there is something in us, and I think in our culture, people have maligned our culture in many ways, the things that we don't have, the shortcomings. But one thing we seem to have is the spirit of grace, the spirit of helping people, the spirit of forgiving. And sometimes it's to our detriment. But I also believe in the thing called karma, that things that go around come around. It may seem like they're winning all the time right now. Seems like every time you turn around, the bad guys are winning. But you have to look at the totality of mankind. You may be looking at just one presidential administration, one decade, or one century, but look how long humanity has existed. Look at some of the empires that have risen and fallen. The Roman Empire, the Greek, the things that happened in Africa, the Third Reich. Don't get so caught up on this short mini glimpse of what's happening and think that you have to change your way of thinking, your moral values. Yes, sometimes you have to help somebody that's not going to help you in return. So that was the kind of the take of Mr. Fuller, that yes, that person is caught up in that flood, and that flood water is dragging them down the river. He said he reverted back to his stance on what true justice is. Whether you agree with him or not, he says, guaranteeing no one is mistreated, and those that need help the most get the most constructive help. Mr. Bobby.
Yeah. Hey, let me make this suggestion on air, because I know you go over that, his words, Mr. Fuller's words, and the tapes and so forth. But if it keeps doing that, it might be a good idea to not play that right then, because it really does interrupt the flow of what we're trying to get across to the listening audience, because we want to make sure that we can keep them. But I'll put it this way: as Black Tony says, it's kind of irritating that goes on. So maybe we could pause that until it's correct, and it can be corrected. Just knowing how and when to do it, so we can keep the show going. Number two, I don't see the comments, or if people are trying to get in. I had some people call me yesterday and indicated they wanted to get on the show, and you have that contact and how they can contact the show, so we can have those questions in there. Do you have those up? Any questions over there?
Yeah, matter of fact, I have Still Learning just put up a comment. He says, he answered the question, can non-white people afford to help other people? And he's pretty much saying that Mr. Fuller left marching orders in his book. He was unambiguous when he said the code says to ensure that no one is mistreated and ensure that those that need the most help get the most constructive help. So Still Learning agrees with Mr. Fuller. And like I said, even though we get some pushback from time to time that says, why should we be helping other people? I know right after the 2024 election, a lot of people decided once Trump became the president and he started enacting all of these rules, firing all these government workers, which disproportionately affected people of color, non-black, non-white people, dismantling DEI, and other things like that. Some people said, well, you made this bed, now lie in it. A lot of people say they're going to set it out. Well, you have to ask yourself, is that justice? If now people are being deported, sending off to these gulag-like prisons, people are losing their job, their livelihood, people are being receiving all types of mistreatment, even though some of those people may have been responsible for putting Trump in the White House. In the spirit of justice, some of these people are hurting. Do you say, hey, we can't afford to help you. We got our own issues to worry about right now. Now, Still Learning, according to Still Learning, one of the listeners, he says that is the marching order. Now, of course, once again, Mr. Fuller, he said nothing is law. He said his book is for interpretation and for those who need it or those who can use it. Mr. Bobby.
Yeah, which precisely leads me into what we are going to talk about, and this is where I need not only you and myself, but I need the listeners to either Google this, go into the stacks, but it's called the Doctrine of Discovery, and it ties right in to all that we're talking about. Of course, Mr. Fuller gave the solution for it was a system of justice, and then we have to dismantle this system of white supremacy that is in a system of justice would eliminate, I believe Mr. Fuller said, every problem that we could have, but that's not being performed. So that's why the book was written, to give us instructions or a manual how to do it, but we haven't done it. But let me go back to this. Everybody get ready. It's called the Doctrine of Discovery. Is a legal and historical concept rooted in papal bulls and later adapted into international law that asserted, now get this, asserted European Christian nations had the right to claim lands they discovered and to subjugate or displace the indigenous populations they encountered. It served as a justification for colonization and dispossession of indigenous people worldwide. The doctrine of discovery originated with papal bulls issued in the 15th century, such as Romanus Pontifex and Inter Caetera, which granted European Christian monarchs the right to claim lands inhabited by non-Christians. U.S. Supreme Court in 1823 case Johnson versus McIntosh adopted the doctrine of discovery as legal principle, asserting that discovery gave European nations title to lands, effectively extinguishing indigenous peoples' rights to their ancestral territories. The doctrine of discovery has been used to justify land seizures, displacement and removal of populations from their ancestral territories, exploration of resources, cultural assimilation, and more. See, I don't know about you, Gabe, but what gave them the authority to just take land from people? I don't. Well, I know what they did. What makes them have the right already there. That kind of reminds me of redlining here and all over. Just doing stuff that's and not letting us know that we have the right to this or putting us where they wanted us to put us. And in this case, in here, to colonize the whole world with this racist agenda. Yay?
Mr. Bobby, you have nailed it. And it goes back to the reason why the system of white supremacy and racism is so difficult to dismantle. We look at sometimes what's in our face. We look at the individual acts of racism. We look at somebody calling us a name. We look at somebody touching our hair. We look at somebody performing these microaggressions on a daily basis. And sometimes we say, well, I'm going to punch that person in the nose, or I'm going to find some way to make their impact on me less than it could be. Then we look at, we realize that, wait a minute, this may be a little bigger than somebody calling me a name or doing some type of physical violence against me. Or then you realize this thing becomes institutional. Then you start looking at things like redlining, and you start looking at things like DEI being dismantled. You're looking at things like people being denied jobs, corporate racism, and so forth. And you say, wait, this problem is not only is it bigger than the individual acts, it's also an institution. Then you say, wait a minute, you mean it's bigger than that? That's when you start to realize it's systemic. It is a system. It is a worldwide system. It's not even just here in the United States. It's a worldwide system. We're going all the way back to the 15th century. We go back to the Berlin Conference in 1865. We go back to all types of acts that have laid down the foundation. And then we look at it like it happened in a vacuum. But now in 1823, we see that this has permeated the United States in a Supreme Court ruling. And as recently as 2005, the Supreme Court has still been dealing with this issue. So we're dealing with a system. And don't be surprised when you start seeing things that you scratching your head and you wonder what's going on. Mr. Fuller was not surprised. He was not shocked. He was not caught off guard. That's why he came up with the famous quote: "If you do not understand racism, white supremacy, what it is and how it works, everything that you understand or thought you understood will only confuse you." Mr. Bobby.
Yeah, check this out. In addition to the discovery, the doctrine of discovery, which I want everybody to look up, including myself and you, Gates. Did you know that there is a declaration on the rights of indigenous people? Yes, the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples is a legally non-binding United Nations resolution passed by the United Nations in 2007 that delineates and defines the individual, collective, and what are the rights of indigenous people? Indigenous people's rights are a set of, internationally recognized rights aimed at protecting the unique cultures, traditions, and livelihoods of indigenous peoples. These rights encompass self-determination, cultural preservation, land rights, and participation in decisions that affect them. The United Nations Declaration of Rights, and it's a legal thing, of indigenous people, is a key document outlining these rights. See, it's there, but they're not really followed. And the example here is Seneca Village. Now, we discussed it on the show before, but Seneca Village, you don't probably know it as Seneca Village. Well, I didn't for a while until I did the research and discovered that that Central Park, which they renamed it, was Seneca Village. And it was a predominantly black area in New York City. See, so they just passed on over these indigenous rights of people, which is part of this system of injustice or white supremacy.
Mr. Bobby, you said a mouthful there, and you're right. This rights of indigenous people, like I said in 2007, you look at the Article 12 that talks about religion, the rights of indigenous people to practice religion in their own way, or Article 24 that talks about their right to practice medicine in their own way. So this document about self-determination, it tells you that the world has looked at this issue. And see, that's the problem. That's why you see, like I say, you have to look at this total system. You wonder why certain people in our government are against the United Nations, why they're trying to remove the United States from the United Nations. Because the United Nations, every now and then, they get it right. They are not under the auspices of some of the system that we see here in the United States. And that declaration in 2007 is a testament to that. So I'm going to keep beating this drum, and I feel that it aligns with Mr. Fuller's own words, is that until you understand the far reaches of this system, you can't go out here and get the perfect job. You can't go out here and make a millionaire, get your millions or your billions. You can't start your nonprofit. You can't go out here and do anything and expect not to encounter the tentacles of this system, Mr. Bobby.
And you're right. Think about this. This what is the big ugly bill?
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Now think about this. In the system of those who need the most constructive help get it, right? He did say that. Okay. Yep. Well, from what I understand, this big ugly bill benefits the billionaires. So how is that? How is that? Well, we already know that's not justice. Now you can say, God bless America and all that. Come on, man, God ain't in that. Not when people are hurting, can't afford food, eating dog food, can't afford houses or anything like that. It's all going to the corporate. That's why I started out by saying corporate predation. They're preying on us for their benefit because they don't care, disrespecting the rights of the doctrine of discovery and disrespecting the rights for indigenous people. They don't give a damn. And that's right, I said that. They don't. But we can overcome it with a true system of justice by dismantling the system of racism, which is white supremacy.
You're right, Mr. Bobby. And Mr. When we talk about the system of racism and white supremacy, we have to also acknowledge that it's omnipresent. Now, we put a question in the comments. We put on the thumbnail we put up. We asked the question: is everybody also working in this system of white supremacy? Now, that was another video we were going to play today, but we're going to pause on the video today. I'm going to be the paraphraser of Mr. Fuller's words today. And one thing that he said is that when you have a meeting of people, and he was speaking specifically of Black people, and they're making all these decisions, and they're talking about the things they're going to do. And he's saying that basically until the white supremacists get their hand on it, not much is going to happen. If they decide it's not going to happen at all, it may not happen at all. Now, of course, that's up for debate. That's my VGQ is that we do have to encourage people to believe that what we do makes a difference and has an impact. But we also have to be realistic. And we also have to ask ourselves, are we all really working either willingly or unwillingly to perpetuate this system? we have people who are on the very fringes and extreme to say, hey, look, I'm my own person. I'm not working in this system. I got my own thing going on, and I'm not contributing to the system in one way or the other. I was talking to a young man the other day. He had just gotten a job, a good government job, as they would call it. And so, while I should have been celebrating his accomplishment, there was something in me that was gnawing at me. I couldn't figure it out until I laid down that night. And it kind of talks about what Mr. Fuller was saying in one of the videos that we were not able to play today. He said, we're all in this system. We're all contributing to it. When you take that job with Uncle Sam, are you not a wheel in the system that's cutting, that's dismantling DEI? Are you a wheel in that system that's cutting back on climate change initiatives that could have contributed to the flood down in Texas? And you don't have to be a government worker. You could be a subcontractor. You could be a business owner. You could be a normal Joe Blow or Jane. To some extent, if we are in this system, then are we not contributing to it? And that we are being self-righteous when we point the hands at certain people and say, you are a sellout. You are an Uncle Tom. You are this or that, the other. But are we looking in the mirror and saying, what am I doing to contribute to this system? Now, this is a tough one. I'm gonna tell you why. Because it's a system. And I do believe that some people deserve to be called out. There's a Latin quote called primum non nocere. And it's part of the Hippocratic oath that doctors take, people in the medical profession take. And it's basically saying, first, do no harm. So what this show is about, and this is where I like to come in, is not about living in this idealism. We have to deal with what we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis to get from point A to point B, to put food on the table, to put our kids through college or whatever they decide to do, to fight, to live, to fight another day. So no, I think there are very few purists in this country when it comes to, are you contributing to this system? The minute you go into a grocery store, you don't know who owns that store. It could be owned by the skinheads. You don't know when you bought that car. So every time you participate economically, socially, and other ways, are you not also contributing? I'm going to say probably in most cases, yes. But I'm going back to that Hippocratic oath. Primum non nocere. First, don't do any harm. Let's assume for a minute that we're all in this system. We were born into it. Our parents were born into it. We couldn't just, at the age of 5, decide to extricate ourselves. And by the time we were in our teens, we had been ground up by the system and spit back out into the world. Now we're going out here getting jobs, buying cars, doing things without consciously realizing how we may be contributing. So the first thing I'm asking everybody to do is that, okay, we're in this system. We got to do the best we can. Don't do any harm. Don't do any harm. Practice justice. Okay, you're in the government. You own a business. You're a consumer. Don't do anything that's going to harm. If you're a music producer, don't produce bad music. If you're a person walking down the street and you have a hot temper, don't shoot and kill other Black people. Don't do any harm is the first request I ask of you. The second thing I would say is, if you can, try to change the system that you're in. You don't have to accept the system the way it is. Okay, you're not hurting, but you don't have to help further the system. So you can do what you can to change the system. You do that by voting. You do that by taking on elective offices and trying to do things differently. You start nonprofits. You choose to vote with your dollars. You don't patronize places. You don't finance your own uh, oppression. And the last thing I tell you that we can do is that we can take action. We can become that cog in the wheel. We can take action to stop the system. Protest, boycott, vote people out of office. So I'm looking back over some of the things that Mr. Fuller has asked of us. And I'm looking at what Mr. Bobby said earlier. We're in this system. We didn't ask to be here. We were brought here in chains, many of our ancestors, but we're in it. It's got its hooks in us. It's in our everyday lives. It's a system. We have to do what we can to survive in this system, slow this system down, and ultimately dismantle this system of injustice, this system of white supremacy, this system of racism. So I'm not mad at anybody. Mr. Fuller also, because first of all, anger is not going to get us closer to the goal line. There's some people in our system that some people will call, like I say, sellouts. Some people call them Uncle Toms. But Mr. Fuller himself said, when you're trying to fight that person, the Uncle Tom, I'm putting this quote in end quote, or the sellout, you're not fighting the perpetrator. He's just a puppet on the string. He called that shadow boxing. You're sitting there fighting the shadow of the real culprit. So you go to your job and you say, we're going to go in here and replace that person that's doing all this Uncle Tom. And these are Mr. Fuller's exact words. Well, they're going to put somebody else in his place. So anyway, my point is, Mr. Bobby, and I didn't mean to go into this rant, this long ramble here, but I took the words that you said and it just reminded me of the pervasiveness of this system. And that we have to be realistic on how we can make change. And that realize that we all are playing some roles in the perpetuation of this system. Mr. Bobby.
I had mentioned before to tie in everything that you just said. And at the beginning, remember when I mentioned about the big three, and this is for your research, but you need to research BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street and Vatican, and they're all financial connections together, and see how the roots have expanded into, as Mr. Fuller would say, every area of people activity. Now, you mentioned about, well, what do we do? I can give you three quick examples. You remember FUBU, don't you? For us, by us.
Yes, indeed.
When the brothers got that together, okay, and they made big bank on that, a lot of cheese, and so because they wanted to get into the industry, and they did, and made money. But there came a point where those that had more money and more power saw them, and then they sold it to them. That's okay. They made money from that. That's okay. Because they did try. Or when I mentioned the other week about the Safeway Bus Company in North Carolina, Wilmington, they were denied the rights to ride buses and so forth. So what did they do? They started their own and became so profitable that they took over the whole thing. And those that had the power and the money saw that, and guess what they did? They bought it. They bought it from them. Ain't no shame in that game. You keep on going. Or how about this? Thirdly, what happened at Black Wall Street? Those people in Black Wall Street had it going on in every area of business, of people activity. They had schools, churches, libraries. I believe there might have been a medical facility, a hospital. They had stores. They were very profitable in their adventures. And in fact, they were so profitable that the heads that be of that city, of course, it was Greenwood then, but in Tulsa, they got mad and conjured up a lie so that they could take it over. And they actually took planes out and bombed them. They bombed them and burned it down. But you know what? The people, and this is not really talked about, but the people, instead of getting upset about that, which they were, but they rebuilt. They haven't told you that story, but check out the story of the rebuilding of the Black Wall Street down there in Tulsa. Go ahead, Gabe.
Well, Mr. Bobby, history is replete with examples of where, and that's why we talked about last week. One of the things we talked about last week was don't give up.
No.
But I must admit, sometimes it'd be very tempting when you realize how dominant the system can be. But the Wall Street was an example. Wall Street was rebuilt. If you ever look at ants, no matter how many times you knock down that mound, no matter how many times you spray them, and they hang around. And so we have to be like that. You're not going to get rid of us. But what we also have to do, we have to find some way to keep building, keep laying down the foundation. And as Mr. Fuller said, we have to get on code. Now, Mr. Fuller, like I said, he wrote these books. And Mr. Fuller was, he was, I would say, ahead of his time. Mr. Fuller was 95 years old when he left us. And I must admit, the first time I heard about Mr. Fuller, I was like, man, this guy's out there, boy. He's really talking some stuff. And then you start realizing this system you're in. I never, until I really started reading the code in other people's books, like Michelle Alexander and Tony Browder and a lot of other Claude Anderson and people like that, I started to realize that you don't realize how deep this problem is, and you realize there's some good brain trust out there that's addressing it, but it does not take away from the individual requirements of us. You can't say this is somebody else's problem. You can't say I'm just gonna let it go away. Mr. Fuller said it was like a bull. He said that he could use an analogy. It's like in the old days when they would throw the slaves or they condemn the people into the Colosseum for entertainment. They turn a bull loose on them, or a tiger, or somebody else with a sword, or a stronger person, to pretty much antagonize you, wear you down, and eventually do you in. In that same analogy, Mr. Fuller said, that bull running around, you're going to be running around until eventually that bull is going to catch up with you. He's going to gore you. And he used that analogy to the system of white supremacy. So one of the call to actions is that we don't give in, we don't give up. You can run for a while. Sometimes you have to run strategically until you find a good stick to pick up, or you find a good tree to get behind, or you find a way to put yourself in some type of a defensive position. But don't run for run's sake. You're not going to outrun it. I'm just telling you. That ain't going to happen, Captain. You're not going to outrun it. So if you must retreat from time to time, be strategic. If you must find yourself in the system, you got this job, you have this business, this organization, make sure you're not harming, you're not making the problem worse. Try to change the system if you can. And if not, resist, Mr. Bobby.
just got a message from Talik. He said he tried to call in, but he couldn't do it. Couldn't get in. Is the system up that we can accept calls? Because he said he's ready.
Well, we're not doing calls. We're doing the video online. You have to come in through the link.
Well, is the link up then so that he
The
can
link is
get
up.
in?
The link is on this in the feed.
Okay, Talik, the link is in the feed. You can still get in if you do it that way, sir.
Let me state again to people who want to get on the show. We're doing the show unlike the Blog Talk days where you picked up the phone and called. We're doing things digitally now, and the show is streamed live on. You can go to the producejustice.com website. You can also go to your Facebook and follow the show. You can go to YouTube, and you can also go to Instagram. These are different ways that you can join the show. Now, if you want to participate and come on screen and join us and let your voice be heard, I've just placed you'll see a link in there from Produce Justice. You click on that link and you'll be given instructions on what to do next. You'll be on camera. I'll see you in the green room. You can wave to let me know you're there. You ready to come on camera, and we'll bring you on camera. Once again, I do apologize for any technical challenges we had today. We've been tackling this thing since the day one. We've changed location, we've changed computers, we've changed. And I will admit, anytime you're on a third-party application, and I'm not trying to deflect blame, but we don't own the software that we're operating on. And I will send them another notice as well to let them know what we're experiencing. So we're not just sleeping on this and saying, well, this is okay, because it's not. But like you said, like those ants, we don't give up. We keep fighting, we keep trying, and we get better. For the people who are joining in for the first time, I'd like to welcome you to the show. And we're here every Tuesday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. And we do enjoy, we ask you to join the show by coming on camera. We have instructions here. We also have instructions on the website. And also, Mr. Fuller has written these books, these code books. What he said, if you can use them, use them. I have the 3 books with me. Occasionally, when I get ready, when I'm preparing for this show, I look at things that are happening in the news and around the world. And then I ask myself, what does the code say about that? Because sometimes you're looking at the media, and the media is going to guide you depending on who owns it. One of the things we learned from Nazi Germany in the Third Reich, Hitler hired this guy, Aaron Goebbels. He was the minister of information. He was a propagandist. And we realized that many of the tricks that Nazi Germany learned, they learned from the United States. So when you find yourself at a loss and trying to figure out what to do next, you need some type of guidance, some type of instruction. You may need a code. It's not going to tell you exactly what to do in every situation, but it lays down a foundation. And this foundation that Mr. Fuller shows is a foundation built on justice. Now, he didn't invent justice, but his take on justice, I think, is worth note, that nobody is mistreated. That the people that need help the most get the most help, and those get the most constructive help. And so we applied that. We started the show talking about that, about how this hurricane, these floods out in Texas, and that do we, not just in the case of Texas, but do we as a people help people who have not been nice to us. Mr. Fuller was unambiguous. You don't have to agree with it. I sometimes might put a star beside it myself because we have so many wants, we have so many needs. And it seems like many times the very people that we help turn around and put the knife in our backs. So it makes you think, it makes you reluctant to help people who are not on your team. But Mr. Fuller, he didn't waver when he said it. He said that person is weak and you're strong or stronger, then you help that person. I'm trying to get better at that. I've done that most of my life, but it does get hard when you see people that are. I grew up in corporate America. When I came out of college, I went straight into corporate America. I met some people, and they were not of my same race. Some became friends, some became cohorts, workers, but some of them are now on the team that seem to want to destroy us. And they're going to swear on the grave that, no. I don't believe that part of the big, beautiful bill. I'm just voting on this part of it. Or I don't believe in this part of MAGA. I just believe in this part. Well, if you're coming to my, if you're aiding in my destruction, your heart doesn't matter to me. It's your actions. It's what you're complicit in. And that's the challenge for me. That's when we look at these people who are suffering now. I don't want anybody to suffer. I'm just going to be honest with you. I want people to change. If I had the choice for the person to be swept down the stream or harmed in some way, I'd rather see them change and go on and live a good life. That would be my preference. Mr. Bobby.
Reminds me of the predatory tactics of the global corporation. No matter how they try to pack it up or ship it out, cover it up, whatever methods they do, known and unknown, whether it's created chaos, because there's no justice involved in it. What is that old saying? No justice, no peace. And that's true. No justice, no peace. So they continually shop around for ends using destruction destruction and distraction to keep us in the state that they want us to be in. See, this is happening because they want it to happen. It's going exactly as they have as they have planned it to go. It's not a mistake. It is going exactly the way that they want it, and they reap the profits from that. And the profits are monetary. That's a shame, but it is.
It's a crying shame. I think
Yes.
Evelyn Champagne King said it. Shame, low down, dirty shame.
Dirty shame.
Man, whatever happened to her? Man, she was back in the day, boy. Evelyn Champagne King would throw down, boy. Keep the home fires burning. All right, we've come to the end of the show. We'll be back next week. Appreciate your engagement. A lot of people have been tuning in today. Also, when you go back and look at the show, the reruns, you can go to YouTube and you can actually see the chat. And you can, if things are moving so fast, you couldn't see the chat that was going on YouTube. When you go to @Produce Justice on YouTube, you can see the chat feed and see what people had to say. Also, you can replay the show. They're immediately available on YouTube, on Facebook, and also you can just go straight to the homepage of the website, producejustice.com, and you'll see everything right there. And on that note, Mr. Bobby, any last words before we get out of here?
Producejustice.com.
All right, that's going to wrap it up for another show. Once again, thank you again for everybody who tuned in. Come back next week, share this show. Also, please like us on Facebook, like us and on subscribe to the YouTube channel. share with other people. Come back. Let's make this show better. This show is Mr. Neely Fuller Jr.'s official show. And you wonder who died and made Mr. Bobby and I king. Well, we weren't king. We're not king. Mr. Bobby worked with Mr. Fuller several years on Talktainment as his co-host. He also was his co-host on Blog Talk for 5 years. I personally worked with Produce Justice and the Neely family, Mr. Neely Fuller's family. I also produced the show for 5 years on Blog Talk. So when the family was looking for people to carry on the legacy, they chose 2 people who were most close and understood Mr. Fuller, who has worked with him the longest continuously. And so we probably have a better understanding. I'm not going to sit here and say we know everything and we share every thought and understand everything that was in Mr. Fuller's head. But we probably know as much as anybody else. But there are people out there who are really on top of it, and that's why we invite you. That's why we share the link every week, and we ask you to come on board and join us. Join Mr. Bobby and me as we try to bring you an administration of justice at the behest of Mr. Neely Fuller on the Neely Fuller Jr.'s Counter-Racist Code Show. So come back next week. Go ahead and get your camera ready. We'll put the link in the feed early. Be prepared to come on board and help us out here. We can use you to make this show the success that it needs to be. On that note, we will see you next week.
If you do not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you do understand will confuse you. In all of these 9 areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Anywhere on the planet, minute by minute, day by day, all of the time, all of the time, all